interesting neighbors throughout my life. Growing up, remember there was a mom who lived nearby. Whenever any of the kids would be crying or say, ouch, she'd look at them and say, there's no blood, you'll live. Or a neighbor that lived right behind us, they had a big fence, and we used to play football right in our backyard. And sometimes the football would go over the fence into her yard. She would get so mad at us and yell at us. We'd have to go get the football. I mean, we didn't do it on purpose most of the time. But one day, the football went over, and she must have been in a bad mood or something. She saw it. She comes running out of her house with a big butcher knife and just, boom, flattens the football. We're just little kids going, whoa. Guess our season's done. I have some interesting neighbors currently. As you know, I live on the new land where the church is going to be built. It's halfway between Princeton and Zimmerman. Some of you haven't been out there yet, so we're going to have another open house in September as a kickoff to our FIRE, Families in Religious Ed program. It'll be on Wednesday night. Anyway, my interesting neighbors now are deer and swans and coyotes and geese. There's a beaver who's not a very nice neighbor, let me tell you. But I believe all neighbors are interesting. And if you've got neighbors that you're having a hard time with, my advice to you would be curious instead of judgmental. Find out more about them instead of just assuming you know, oh, this is why they act that way. This is why they do things like that. Get to know them. Ask questions. Get in a relationship. Now, Jesus, as you heard, he's having the man quote Deuteronomy, talking about how to live. And they say, love your neighbor as yourself. You just heard it. It doesn't say, love your neighbor as much as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself, as an extension of you, as you being part of them. So you really got to think, like, what are they going through? And if you were going through that same thing, how would you act? If you were in their same shoes, how would you respond? Jesus goes on and says, we got to make a difference. We got to start loving them as ourselves. Then he goes on to say the famous story of the Samaritan. Now you got to remember, Jesus was speaking mostly to Jewish people. The man was Jewish who talked to him. And to the Jewish people, a Samaritan would be these awful people. We don't like them at all. We can't stand them. They're no good. You can't trust them. They're the lowlifes. In a sense, what Jesus is using is the word Samaritan as a buzzword for us. It doesn't really mean like Samaritans only, but it's meaning all those people that we would have a hard time with. Like for yourself, think of like someone in your life. Say like it would be, the abortion doctor, or the sex trafficker, or maybe it would be the drug dealer, or it'd be those kind of people you just don't agree with, or people who look different than you, they act different than you, whether it's because of their skin color, or because of their religion, or their orientation, whatever you deem as that person that you kind of look down upon, Jesus would say, that's your Samaritan. And then Jesus goes on to say that Samaritan that you're thinking of, he calls them good. That'd be like the good drug dealer. And then Jesus even goes further and makes that Samaritan the hero of the story. Where the ones we think are going to do good, they don't do good. Now for many of us, that just doesn't make any sense in our minds. Because Jesus is challenging us to think from our hearts. To open ourselves differently, how we respond to people. What that means for a lot of us is that instead of being so judgmental or saying this is how they're going to be. Now I've got to believe that for many of you, you are good people. That you're not intentionally wanting to harm somebody. Even for that Samaritan in your mind, even for that person you just despise and you don't like. I gotta believe you're not intending for them to have bad things happen to them, or you're not going to say things to them. If you are going to cause harm to somebody, talk to me after Mass. We got to chat about that, okay? But there's a different kind of harm that we do. It might not be intentional, but it's that radiance that we give, or that aura that we extend, or just that energy that we have around us. I'll call it your grace field. That all of us have it. We have this kind of like aura that we can just kind of, illuminate or respond in any different way. Now, in a positive way, we talk about this good grace or this good radiance. And many times in the pictures and statues of our saints, they'll have them depicted with an aura around them. Like if you look at the stained glass of Moses over here, holding the Ten Commandments, he's got that circle around his head. That's to represent that holiness or aura around him. Those of you in the cry room, look at that stained glass back there of the Virgin Mother. Again, she's got that aura around her. Or, of course, then look over here. We got Jesus, the resurrected Jesus. He's got that aura around him. We all have that possibility to have that goodness, that grace around us that other people can just pick up. Let me show you how it works. What I want you to do, and just watch me first. I want you to take your hands, you're going to rub them like, don't do it yet, rub them like this. And then you're going to open your hands and then bring them back and forth like this. You're going to feel something. Okay, everyone try that. Rub your hands like this. Okay, and now take your hands back and forth. Ooh. Can you feel something? Try it again. Try it again. Don't go too far away from each other. Okay, now try it again. Back and forth. You just feel something. If you can't do it, try it at home. Keep working it at home. You all have it. You all can do it. And I've got to believe that for every one of us, that we have this sense where, like, we just know when there's a good person or someone has a good aura. Like, let's say the Pope would be sneaking up behind me, and I didn't even know he's in the room yet. If I could just sense that, I could just feel his aura or his goodness. Thank you, Pope. I'll go back. Excuse me. You all have that possibility. You have this goodness or this radiance of goodness around you that people can just pick up. Or the opposite can happen, where you get stuck and you start thinking these bad thoughts or negatively about someone, and people can pick that up also. I believe strongly that animals can sense it, and many of you know that. You have dogs, and they can just pick up when a person seems friendly or a person doesn't seem friendly. Many times babies can pick that up, or toddlers. They just have this sense of someone's energy or their radiance. I call it their grace. It's like the story of the police officer who stopped a man for speeding. The officer standing outside the car and writing it up, and all of a sudden these flies are all around him. He's like, what the heck? All these flies. The guy inside said, those are circle flies. Officer says, circle flies? What are circle flies? The man says, well, those are flies who circle around the back end of a horse. Are you saying that I'm a back end of a horse? The man looks up and says, no, sir, but you just can't fool those circle flies. We all have a radiance about us. And it's up to you to decide how you want to do and what you're going to do with it. Many times we complain about all the hatred that's going on in our country, that people just aren't talking or getting along well with other people. But if there's change that's going to happen, it's not because of those people. It's not because of our leaders in politics or those people that change. It's going to change because of you. And even if you're not physically saying something or doing something. I believe that there's an aura that people can pick up. When there's somebody in your presence that you may not like or you just like look down upon. Perhaps you don't even know them. You've never even talked to them. I've got to believe that when that happens, you have that feeling about those people or those kind of people. It says more about you than about them. It's probably a projection of what you don't like about yourself, and you're scapegoating or projecting it onto that people. So my advice for you is start being more honest with yourself. Start to figure out why. Whatever it is, like, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like how they do. And Jesus challenges us. He says we can't be thinking ourselves alone anymore. We can't just be loving those people who look like us or talk like us or think like us. He says you got to start connecting to other people. You got to start recognizing the love that we have for everyone whom he calls our neighbors. You got to ask yourself, do you love your neighbor as yourself?